inference, which means a process to determine the involved causative and preventive factors. So in epidemiology, we try to determine the cause, but of course we will never know what is the cause. Only God knows. Okay, kita try in terms of okay, epidemiology, the definition. Okay, the definition is a subject or a study of disease distribution and determinants. That is our role. Other people, pathologists, microbiologists, they try to determine the cause by the pathophysiology, pathogenesis, if the physiology, by the physiology, but we try to determine by the cause or the determinants and the distribution. So usually we do not use the word cause. We will use the word risk. Okay, risk, what are the risks and so on. But bottom line is the risk is trying to determine the cause. So it will involve basically two steps to look whether the observation is true or valid. So we will learn later what is bias, a systematic error, confounding factors. You can see in your lecture titles, you have this lecture, random errors, and to assess whether the exposure actually caused the outcome. Okay, these are the key characteristics of causes. Okay, essential distribution attributes which include association, time order, and directionality. So all these later you apply whenever you attend the lecture in study design. In your research methodology, even in basic epidemiology, certain study design will only can measure association. For instance, cross-sectional, case control. There is no directionality. It's just a snapshot at the time of point. Contohnya macam ni lah, cause ayam berkokok associated dengan sunrise. Tapi tak menyebabkan. Tak adalah ayam berkokok mesti menyebabkan matahari terbit. Okay, and ada juga berkokok tengah hari, ada juga petang. So this is just association. And then time of order and so on. So intervention, there's a direction, there's a time order. And the causes include host, environmental factors. If there is ada virus, tapi virus ni mesti duduk dalam certain environment. It's sitting in a certain host. Yeah? And then agents and so on. We will go through this later. And the cause may be positive, which the presence induce disease, or the present may prevent the disease. Okay, these are a few definitions of causation. You can read through this paper. It's an old paper. Okay, but this is a review, actually, a review looking at what are definition being used to define causation. You can see here necessary cause, sufficient component cause, probability cause. So all these definition, they apply to develop a model. Okay? Example next is, let's say Rothman. You can also read the book Epidemiology Kept Simple. Boleh Google je. Okay, dia ada e-book dia. But Rothman use all the definitions to create a causal pie. Causal pie just macam pie or macam pizza ni. Okay, macam all these factors are considered as sufficient. All these component ini, these are components, component, each participating factor in a sufficient cause, meaning that all these need to be present and it is sufficient to cause a certain disease. Okay, all these components are sufficient to cause certain disease in scenario 2, and all these components are sufficient to cause the disease to cause, okay, scenario 3. But this is the basic from here just now. Here, sufficient component cost. You can read the definition later, but on all this sufficient with the component cost just now, they need to have a necessary cost. Okay, a condition without it, the effect cannot occur. So you can see here the necessary cost, a causal component, all these are component in every sufficient cost. A must be present, A. So this is the necessary cost. Example katalah dengue fever, ada nyamuk at this time, ada environment, ada tak ada resource reduction and so on, ada host, tapi dalam nyamuk tu tak ada virus. So the necessary is the virus. Virus kena ada. So these are how Rothman tried to explain or develop a model to explain cost, called a causal pi. But ni basic sajalah. But in life, we use causal web. And this is what you need to develop in your proposal later, chapter 2. Okay, chapter 2 meaning that let's say you're interested in macam mana example apa tajuk you all? Dah ada tajuk okay lah, senang lah. Hypertension hypertension, there's modifiable factors, there non-modifiable factors. So we read from literature. There's also, let's say, a disease here. Okay, disease here, hypertension. Okay, that's sex, gender influencing, and then you can see that this is a direct effect. This is indirect effect. So all this you need to develop later for your study from literature search. Okay, then from literature you develop the causal web. So this is how we try to explain the cause of certain disease. It's not as simple as the pie just now. Ada ni direct, ni mediating lagi, and the disease pergi ke sini lah pula. So all this, when you develop this, every arrow must be supported by your reading. Jangan buat sendiri je, must be supported. Okay, any questions so far kat sini? Okay, ni contoh, this is what we develop lah, called conceptual framework. Okay, the next model, so basically this is the third model, epidemiological triad or EPIC triad, is a classic model to explain infectious disease. Okay, infectious disease, because the web just now can be applied to infectious, and CD and non-CD. So basically there's three number triad: agent, host, and environment. So from this we explain one by one. What is agent? Agent is only pathogens. Any pathogen can be bacteria, virus, parasite, fungi, prion, and so on. And the traits of the agent. Okay, the traits of the agent is very important. The infectivity, okay, likelihood that an agent will infect a host, the pathogenicity, and the virulence. So I've uploaded this material. You can read further here. The infectivity, example, varicella zoster virus, infectivity is high, pathogenicity is high, virulence is low. Okay, it's quite self-limiting. So it's the trait of the agent. Same goes for our current pandemic now. Okay, and activity of pathogenicity, the virulence. The virulence can be explained by case fatality. Okay, the pathogenicity, infectivity can be explained by R naught. Okay, how they infect. So this is example of emerging virus infection. You can see kan MERS-CoV, case fatality high, sebab tu virulence high. SARS-CoV. Compared to SARS, current COVID virulence is low, but SARS is higher. 2000. SARS is 2002 kan? Where were you? Muda-muda lagi kan? Okay, so the highest fatality mana? HIV. Okay, still HIV. So these are not. This is bila punya paper ni. The same paper, right? So these are the traits of the agent. Next is the host. Okay, host. How susceptible are we? Okay, ability of an exposed individuals. Now we are all susceptible COVID-19. Okay, sebab telah kena ada social distancing, wearing mask, wash hands and so on. But it very much influenced by our age. Okay, stress level, jangan stress baru 2 minggu. Pregnancy state and so on. So it our immunity level influence a lot on our susceptibility, and immunity can have two, the innate and adaptive. Okay, innate ni contohnya macam our skin pun is immunity kan, luka ada immunity, T cells semua bergerak, okay, functioning. There's no memory, tunggu luka lain balik, right? As compared to an adaptive immune response, okay, it has memories, it's a gradual response, and this is the basic for our vaccination. Okay, vaccination. The vaccination can be in form of active vaccination. Active vaccination, we induce our body to generate immune protection, or passive immunization, IgG and so on. So these are the hosts under the EPIC triad. Next is the environment. Okay, so they need to have balance. Okay? Environmental determinants of vulnerability to infectious disease can be physical, social, behavior and so on. Macam ni political masa ni lah tak ada social distancing and so on. So these are related to environment. Okay, that's for disease causation. So how do epidemiologists try to assess causation? One of the guidelines is by Hill's guideline, okay, but this is not rigid, mesti fulfill semua, or these are the only guideline. There's a lot of other guidelines. This is just to assist epidemiologists to decide the aspect of association in determining causal. There are nine points. Ni try to memorize and understand what it is, because ni quite common, quite favorite exam question. His guideline sometimes kasih scenario and then which this scenario fulfill or fit to which criteria. Ada juga macam tu. Ada juga write short notes on his guideline. Ada juga macam tu. Okay. Sebab selalu banyaknya scenario fit into which component. Nyamuk. Sorry. Okay, example. Okay, strength of cessation, consistency, so on sampailah 9. Example. This is a very old paper, but this is an achievement in epidemiology. HPV virus is a necessary cause. So we heard just now about necessary cause in the causal pi, which is necessary to present for any sufficient cause, part of sufficient cause in an invasive cervical cancer. So because of all this study, kita nampak ni 1999 HPV vaccine around 2005-2006 kan. So they start the introduction of vaccine. So is a necessary cause of invasive cervical cancer worldwide. So they publish this paper. You can look for this paper according to his criteria. Example, dia blur sikit. You can see. Number one, okay, strength of association. I think next you're gonna have lectures on strength of measures of association. I tak ingat flow dia. Usually measures of disease occurrence, disease causation, nanti ada strength measures of association. Association means effect size lah, our odds ratio, relative risk, mean difference. Okay? Example here. Okay, association between HPV DNA in cervical specimen is one of the strongest observed in human cancer. Okay, this is linking the association of a virus towards cancer. And it's this strength. Example here, see, these are all the studies. Contohnya kat sini HPV vaccine, HPV DNA 18, RR or OR more than 500 is very, very, very high. Okay, in Costa Rica, in Bangkok, compared to other virus causing liver cancer. See, this is hepatitis B, hepatitis C. Okay, secret scombing is not infectious, but the strength is relatively low compared to HPV DNA. These are the baseline. Okay, RR, OR, baseline 1. Yeah, oh, sorry. Okay, next, consistency. Maknanya consistently having high or strong association. The association is consistent with a large number of investigation. Any investigation throughout the world is consistently showing good or very strong association. Contohnya reference is here. Okay, who are consistently dekat sini je. Tak ada yang di other side. Okay. This is by odds ratio. Okay, ni forest plot. So, tinggi di sini, consistent. Next is specificity, the association. Sorry, kejap. The association of HPV DNA and cervical cancer is significantly different from random. Okay, it's very specific. Okay, bukan secara random tiba-tiba this is associated with this. Memang cari akan dapat jumpa. Histology, okay, by histology suggests a fair degree of specificity. Okay, temporality time based, maknanya cause kena precede the effect. Okay, infection must precede the pre-cancer resolution. Bukannya cancer dulu, lepas tu memanglah akan ada virus tu kat situ. Okay, but they can show the temporality. Okay, this is a biological gradient, the fifth factor, evaluation. Biological gradient, meaning that it's just like macam dose, drug dose gradient. The risk of cancer may be related to estimates of the viral load. Okay, viral load. Biological possibility is number 6, and coherence is number 7. It's all explained here. Okay. Number 8 is experimental evidence. Experimental evidence shows that the species specific papillovirus induce papilloma. Okay, maknanya if you buat experimental in animals, it can show that this virus will induce papilloma in a susceptible host. Of course, experiment not in human. Okay, the 9 is analogy. Okay, HPV and cervical cancer model is analogous to many other examples of papilloma and cancerous caused by other viruses. So you can look for other example, but this is one of the achievement lah masa nak develop vaccine tu, and then apply as a policy. Okay, now policy kan kita kasih to our children, secondary school girls. So it's quite natural. With that dapat buat policy, and then cost effect. Before nak buat policy tu kena study ni vaksin ni dah develop. Okay, that can be shown that there is a cause and effect, and then develop vaccine, and then nak apply tu kena buat study cost effectiveness and so on. Okay, macam kita ni Prof Sharifah, dia punya PhD yang ni. Okay, then dapat apply as a policy to give to all children. Okay, these are another examples of guidelines. Hills are here, lama dah ni, 65. So there's a lot of other guidelines as well. Okay. Okay, habis tu disease causation and assessing. So we go to a transmission basic. So ada kita tajuk kan, ada dua kan, causation and transmission. We try to go into transmission. Before we go into transmission, let's look into some definition. What is infection? Infection occurs when agent enter a body and develops or multiplies. What is agent? Agent just now, it has their own traits, okay, infectivity, pathogenicity, virulence, and so on, which can produce clinically manifest disease. What is infectious disease? An infection that results in clinically manifest disease. So looking into transmission basic, ni gambar ni basic sangat-sangat. Basic. Kalau undergrad kita kasih ni, kita blankkan, fill in the blanks. Betul lah, undergrad lah. But example here, chickenpox. Okay, varicella is highly infectious, high pathogenicity, attack rates from two susceptible contacts can be 60 to 100%. Kalau anak kita kena masuk di sekolah, tadika especially, ada classmate, insyaAllah lah, in another 2 weeks, kenalah anak kita insyaAllah. Okay. So, they are exposed. Okay, the children are exposed. But in the meantime, before any vesicle, kita usually nampak vesicle dulu lah, demam-demam sikit, tak diagnose lagi chickenpox. Nampak vesicles, barulah kata dia chickenpox. That is what we call incubation period. But the danger part is here, before the vesicle develop, okay, the shedding already commence, maybe from nasopharynx and so on. Okay, so these are the danger period. Inilah yang kita tak tahu kita ni COVID-19 the danger period ni. Because most of our patients are asymptomatic, okay, most of it asymptomatic pun, and infectious period will continue till the vesicle tu kering kan. Dia tak shed lagi. So it can, and the end point is the resolution. Chickenpox usually is self-limiting, but in adults it's quite severe. Severe. I had one patient, adult patient, chickenpox, end up with encephalitis. Kalau children ni dia happy je, lompat-lompat sana sini. Lain adult right? So from this all this terminology kena ingat lah. Okay, incubation period from the exposure to the onset of disease. Okay, sign and symptoms. Illness period, duration from the first to the last. Okay, latent period. Okay, from exposed to shedding. Okay, onset of infectiousness, but there is no onset of clinical signs yet. And the infectious period, they can become cases, or can also be a carrier, where a period that an infected person can transmit an infectious agent. So looking at this terminology, okay, a carrier, infectious individual who apparently look healthy, doesn't show anything, but they are infectious. Basically itulah definition dia. Ni ayat panjang-panjang ni. It can be in terms of incubatory carrier, okay, especially in chickenpox, belum ada vesicle, belum ada demam lagi, but they are shedding already. And it is part of the incubation period. Latent period sini they start shedding here, right? Or convalescent carrier. Example, cholera, Cholera is quite acute. The incubation period is 1 to 3 days. Okay, they can be very ill. Okay, can be very ill because a lot of losing fluid. But even though we stabilize them, they are still infectious, right? Jadi kita kena check stool dia sampai berapa kali negatif, right? Same goes for asymptomatic typhoid. Ni lagi, that's why we have to vaccine our food handler because the incubation period is very long, up to a month. Okay, can be up to a month, and there is no clinical illness, and yet they are infectious. Okay, that is the basic. Ingatlah gambar tu tadi ya. Because it will apply to our natural history of disease and level of prevention. So next is the dynamic of infectious diseases within population. Oops. Kenapa tak bergerak? Okay. Okay. So all this terminology, we've been hearing it for almost a year dah nah. Kan nak dekat setahun dah. What are sporadic cases? We are in our third wave, so bukan sporadic sangat dah. Right? The sporadic disease occurs. This is what we heard. Masa awal-awal ni, siapa tak ingat ni? April, okay, April. Awal-awal dulu. Okay. Awal-awal sporadic cases. What is endemic? Okay, endemic disease occur in predicted regulated. Okay, dengue is endemic. Okay, typhoid is endemic, cholera is endemic in some part of the country, so endemic. So ingat terminology ni semua use accordingly. Epidemic, what is epidemic? Okay, reflect escalation in the occurrence of an endemic disease. We are having dengue, but suddenly tak ada surge naik. Okay, surge naik daripada baseline dia. A median number of cases, that is epidemic, or occurrence of disease that did not previously exist in population. Example, Nipah virus dulu 1999. Iya ke? Yes, 1999 around there. 1999, okay lama dah, 20 years ago. That is a new virus. And then even COVID-19 started as an epidemic first, then turns to pandemic. And the word outbreak synonym with epidemic, but usually is more limited to certain geographical area. Next is we are in pandemic. So berapa pandemic kita dah dapat hidup so far? COVID-19, H1N1. Itulah yang pandemiknya. Okay, 2 pandemic. So we are here. COVID-19 ni September punya. Okay, swine flu ni is H1N1. Ebola, SARS 2002 ni, 2002. But looking backwards, HIV, not forgetting HIV. HIV, look at the number of fatality, very big because of dah lama, more than 30 years already. So ni, Black Death ni. So these are all pandemics, okay, which spread over a large geographic region, involve multiple countries. Okay, looking back at immunity, this is our problem at the moment. We don't have herd immunity for the population of COVID-19. It's a population level resistant to an infectious disease. Not only that, we are also facing with anti-vax. Okay? So this happen, okay, not immunized but still healthy. If they're sick, okay, dia akan jadi macam wildfire. Okay, we do have certain community in our district kan. Close community memang tak mau vaksin apa semua, kalau dia stay kat situ je okey lah lagi. Okay, but if someone comes in with certain virus, it's going to be like wildfire. Okay. Okay, let's say this is an example of influenza. If only certain people get vaccinated, still doesn't able to protect the whole population because it's very widespread ahead again. Jauh. We want a herd immunity where many or majority of us get vaccinated, whether it's being actively ataupun passively ke, sorry. So that the susceptible person, the blue one, is far apart and is protected by the vaccinated individual. So jauh tak sampai lah. By the time nak sampai merah ke biru, dia pun dah sihat. Maybe dah develop immunity at that time. Okay. So jagalah ni sama-sama lah. We fight together. So that's about the dynamic of infectious disease within population. All the terminology just now to explain what is going on in the population. Next is the chain of infection. Okay, what is chain infection? Okay, kita dengar hari-hari ni DG cakap memutuskan rangkaian. Rangkaian apa It's chain of infection. Rangkaian jangkitan, hari-hari kita dengar benda yang sama. Okay, the causation and spread of infectious disease interplay goes back to the triad just now between agent, host and environment. Okay, so public health control or prevention and control focus on breaking the chain. Breaking the chain to stop disease spread. So apply lah dengan senario sekarang. Oops. Okay, these are the chain. You boleh baca sini. I'm not going to go through one by one. So because basically macam membacakan to you all, dia jadi bedtime story pula tak boleh. Samalah kita tidur nanti. So but basically these are the chain. So baca. Okay, what is infectious disease? Infectious agent. We've gone through just now the types, the traits, reservoir, exit, transmission. So basically trying to break the chain at any point. Maybe break kat sini. So susceptible host, we are susceptible. We need to take care of our immunity, boost up immunity with healthy eating. I cakap je I pun tak buat juga. Healthy eating and so on, exercise, blah blah blah. Okay, but break is basically chain, rantai, break it. Example, ada example tapi baca lagi we gone through agent just now. Okay, what is agent? And then reservoir of, tertinggal kat sini, of an infectious agent is a habitat. Okay, tempat tinggal, tempat grow, tempat multiply. It can be human, can be animal, can be an environment. Okay, infectious agent can exist in more than one type of reservoir. So, okay. Another example, mode of transmission, okay, can be direct or indirect. Direct contact, chickenpox, direct contact, droplets, okay, placental, transplacental. Indirect is usually the vector, biological vector, our mosquito, can be toys and so on. It can also airborne. So we tinggalkan dulu ni chain of infection. You go back to the transmission basic just now. So it also applies to the natural history of disease and relation to level of prevention. You can read through this book, okay? I mentioned just now, epidemiology kept simple. Okay, natural history of disease refers to progression of disease in an individual over time. Okay, maknanya natural history of disease, for example, type 1 diabetes, okay, dia clear sikit sebab dia genetic. Dia memang genetic modification kan. So, type 1. Bila type 2 dia a bit difficult because when actually we develop type 2 diabetes, okay, because once we are diagnosed, actually the microvascular complication already set in. So the natural history of disease of type 2 actually banyak meminjam kepada type 1. Okay. Another example, during H1N1 pandemic, is a novel virus at that time, so we don't have the natural history of disease. Kita pinjam influenza or SARS masa tu. Okay, because nak sampai sini ambil time lah. Okay, it takes time. Even now pun in our third wave of COVID-19 pun, the stage of recovery, death pun dah lain sikit. Okay, up to stage of the second cycle, that is second wave, dah macam nampak. Okay, we can stabilize the number of deaths, okay lagi, but now somehow number of deaths is increasing. So natural history of disease ni, it takes time to really establish and understood. So but then it is used to apply the prevention. Example, you hear this a lot, primary prevention, secondary prevention, tertiary prevention. So kalau ada soalan prevention and control, try to apply this level. Jangan tak ada structure when you answer. Okay, kena ada structure lah. Okay, primary targets at the susceptible stage. So the keywords are intended to reduce new occurrence. Okay, reduce. So jenis contoh-contoh dia apa? Okay, health education. Okay, health education promotion apply to all stages lah, semua throughout. But basically vaccination. Okay, vaccination, wearing helmet, wearing seat belt, tu semua tu to reduce new occurrence. So it apply here. Next is the secondary prevention. There's two main points to prevent the disease. The disease is there actually, okay, but maybe we could delay it, or we can the key point is actually to have early detection. Here is early detection. Panjang-panjang ayat ni is actually early detection. Okay, early detection to reduce the severity is actually prompt treatment. Keywords is early detection, screening. Okay, once detect, kenapa dia gerak sendiri ni? Is it moving? Take control. Okay, early detection, prompt treatment. Alright. So at the stage of before the clinical onset, apa lagi screening? Pap smear, breast examination, okay, blood pressure, check darah for cholesterol, screening semua tu, right? Next is tertiary. So in public health, we usually focus in primary and secondary lah, okay, public health. Tertiary ni more to hospital based, okay, to minimize the progression. Okay, adalah juga macam diabetic, nak prevent ke complication, microvascular complication already sets in, but to prevent it, okay, we still aim for that, but mainly in secondary prevention. A tertiary is to prevent the disease already sets in, to prevent the complications, okay, to improve quality of life, functionality, and so on. So apply to the natural history of disease, transmission basic for infectious disease, non-infectious tak adalah sangat. Apply to your level of prevention. And cari example lagi. Example banyak kat sini. Ini I plagiat internet. Tak ada quotation lah, kalau tak ada citation. Example lah, example tadi. The keywords here, see, health promotion, specific protection for primary, early diagnosis, prompt treatment. Dia dua tu. Keywords dia kat situ. Tertiary is rehabilitation. So this is example. So going back to, belum go back lagi. This is, okay, prevention just now. If the hierarchy of public health control. Okay, control, we try to control. Now we are at the stage of try to control COVID-19 to reduce disease incidence, okay, to acceptable level. Even we control dengue to reduce to acceptable level. Maknanya if COVID-19 ni acceptable level, janganlah kita punya first line, okay, front line dia collapse. Kepenatan, that's why we try to reduce. Okay, continued intervention. Okay, elimination. What about elimination of disease? Reduction to zero of the disease with continued intervention measures. Okay, example neonatal tetanus. Elimination of infection, reduction to zero. Still continued measures. Okay, we can hear about measles, poliomyelitis. Okay, polio dah naik balik pula, measles, diphtheria and so on. Eradication, permanent reduction. There is no longer intervention measures. Example, smallpox. Okay, because smallpox bukan dia extinct, dia eradicate. Dia ada je dalam lab lagi. Okay, simpan. Okay, if extinct, there is no longer exist. Okay, these are the hierarchy lah. Been hearing this over and over again every day. And applying chain of infection to level of prevention or control. Example here, we go to agent and reservoir. Okay, this starts, the chain usually starts at the agent. Okay, agent, we said agent residing or multiplying in a reservoir. So how do we target here? Example. Okay, control, the word control just now, the agent within its reservoir, either by neutralizing, destroying, okay, tak boleh lah destroy human, environment boleh lah lagi, okay, or stop the agent from existing in its, ada tertinggal sini, in its reservoir. So the keywords here, surveillance. Okay, surveillance nak kena ILI surveillance. You go through later. You are involved in all this, but get it in structure. What is surveillance? Our disease surveillance measure, the top 5 mandatory lab, clinical, rumors, and so on. But bottom line, the surveillance can be either active or passive. Okay, baca kat sini lagi. Okay, active surveillance, we go out, cari cases. Passive, the one comes to us, right? Okay, example, looking at the agent and reservoir just now, we break, so the aim in prevention and control is to break the chain. Okay, putuskan rangkaian. So we have COVID-19. So what is the host? Okay, is the host a human host? Human to human transmission. Okay, yang cari contact tracing so on. But yet certain people do get infected and become cases. So how do we control this? Oops. Okay, quarantine. Quarantine ni pun banyak isu. A restriction of activities of healthy person. Healthy person. Okay, balik overseas, balik Sabah kena quarantine. Okay, even masa Ogos, masa tu boleh masuk lagi in for matrix or for pre-university level. All students from Sabah or from Kedah need to be quarantined in different hostel. Student lain boleh masuk hostel lain. So it's quarantine. Healthy, they are healthy. Okay. Kalau expose, contact tracing. Okay, process of identifying, assessing, managing who are exposed to prevent transmission. Yet kalau tak juga, what happened to this? Isolation. So the terms here is quarantine apply to healthy, isolation apply to infected individuals, and contact tracing. So this is aimed at the agent and reservoir. If we aim at the mode of transmission, okay, for example, most of our vector-borne diseases, okay, because it's a small mosquito, but it's very dangerous. 70% of global burden disease, infectious disease. So the primary means is to prevent the disease through integrated vector management. So this is how WHO recommend how to break the chain through mode of transmission. Okay, looking at the, all these category, the environmental, resource reduction, mechanical housing improvement, traps and so on. Section 3 tengah hotspot baru je orang edis datang, orang PKD datang, edis survey, biological and chemical. So this is targeting at one of the chain to break the transmission. Okay, habis 50 slides. So dekat paper yang I bagi tu, they give example of how to target. So baca kat situ baca situ, make notes and so on, and add on with other materials, but basically go through by the chain. Okay, ada soalan apa-apa? Disease causation transmission, ada soalan tak I buat the most common tu lah, heels tu lah. Tapi now ni kita nak pakai face to face ni, mungkin banyak ala-ala kebat sikit You tahu kebat kan? Yang soalan budak sekolah ni. Sebab dia open book Okay. Okay. Alright, semua orang okay? Sihat sejahtera?
Okay, sihat.
Ya, Prof.
Okay, any question? You only malu buka video Kenapa malu
Prof, morning Prof.
Morning. Buatlah kejap kita buat together mode punya gambar ni, attendance.
Gelap.
Buka 2 minit, malu-malu sangat. Cantik rumah you all tu, banglo besar-besar
Baru pindah, Prof.
Oh, baru pindah lagi. Tengok I duduk atas lantai je. Ya, rumah cantik-cantik tu, kena tunjuk sikit.
Background bersepah.
Sepah. Aim angle tu tempat lain sikit. Sekejap nak ambil gambar tu, ada mood ni. Mula nampak ramai. Okay, print screen ya.
Sekejap Prof.
Semua dah buka nak print screen ni. Malu sangat you all. Yang mana? Okay, so macam mana? So good luck lah Good luck nak buat proposal dah ni. Siapa yang section 3 tu kita boleh jumpa-jumpa, nak discuss boleh. Bila lah PKP ni. Okay, ada apa-apa ke soalan?
So far clear, kena revise balik lah.
Ikut flow tu, you add on with your own readings lah. Yeah. Make notes. And then all materials semua ada. But that is very simple material lah, you top up lagi. But basically tajuk dia causation, memang tu causation yang 3 models tu very commonly used. Not commonly used, web lah, the web. But the basic is there. Okay, to triads and then apply to your transmission. Ingat natural history of disease just now. The level of prevention, the control punya technology, and how do you break the chain. Sebab soalan ni kan general je, describe ke, or how would you prevent and control this disease macam tu. Okay, kalau tak ada apa-apa kita boleh end sini.
Prof, hi, Sumaya here.
Yeah.
Just nak tanya Prof regarding because sekarang ni kan kita one of the prevention kita buat social distancing at least 6 feet kan, because before this by the experiment that they did at the beginning said that the disease can be transmitted to 6 feet from person to person. But just last night, when I saw in the NBC news, they said actually now it can spread more than 6 feet.
More than 6 feet.
Yes.
Itu
So I was like, because they said that it's like now kalau kat Malaysia it is considered as third wave. Okay, but over there in US they still not sure whether they're entering the second wave because it's really bad there. And they said this time around the virus is more like more vigilant, like it's more and it can spread more than 6 feet. So the habit of the virus is changing.
yeah, because virus kan every 6 months kan dia berubah.
Dating, yeah.
The shift and drift tu.
Mm-hmm.
Baru
So
kita nak settle this wave, dia dah change.
mm-hmm.
Dia dah change. 6 months that's why vaksin pun kita kena ambil 6 monthly kalau influenza.
Mm-hmm.
Ada hemisfer selatan, hemisfer utara. Same for COVID ni lah. It's still a virus. Tak tahu dia berubah tu. And
So not
can be what we can do is vaccination memang tak ada semua. The chain here is the aim is at the susceptible host. Yeah, that's why a mask, social distancing, stay at home. Tu je lah yang boleh buat sekarang. Washing hands and so on.
the social distancing part is because now we also are not sure whether the 6 feet working
Mode of
anymore.
transmission tu berubah-ubah sekarang ni. If you look at the chain, the mode of transmission tu still tak stabilize lagi. Dia akan berubah. What we targeting now, memang dekat susceptible host. Tu saja yang boleh buat at the moment ni. Tapi I still give them mamak juga. Macam mana? But that is because epidemiologically kita nak herd immunity tu. Okay, the more people exposed, the more people get immunized, but not in this case. COVID-19 ni doesn't develop the immunity somehow. Okay, as compared to H1N1 dulu. Okay, we don't really see all this using mask, social distancing macam H1N1 kan. Because somehow the immunity tu ada. Okay, not in this case COVID-19 ni. Keep on changing. Sebab tu kita dah masuk bulan keberapa dah ni, masuk third wave. For more than 6 months. Coming to 6 months. Okay. Ada chat ke ni? Oh, tak ada. Alright, okay So, my class should end at 9:30. Sejam lagi. Soalan lah. Unless ada nak tanya apa-apa lagi. Anything you email or WhatsApp
Hello, Prof.
Yep.
Hello, Prof. Are you here?
Yes.
Okay. Prof, regarding the HILS guideline, in terms of public health, do we use this guideline in our proposal or thesis later on? HILS guideline.
Dalam thesis, dalam proposal, I tak pernah lah jumpa. But if your study, okay, if your study is of the objective or you punya problem statement ke, nak show some apa, dia show apa objective study you kalau nak pakai HILS. Nak tengok juga. Causation. Macam mana nak guna Good question, tak pernah jumpa orang pakai. Jap. Macam mana kalau nak pakai Case criteria kalau nak pakai. Oh, I understand. I think you punya, is it your idea ni mana you nak menulis tu, especially in the chapter 2 dekat lecture review tu, you nak pakai this kind of flow. Macam tu ke soalan ni? I tak pernah jumpa lagi lah orang pakai that. But maybe boleh lah, but it's just cara menulis chapter 2 ni is actually cara you nak menyampaikan storyline you. Okay. So kalau you nak try guna tu, boleh juga try. Saya tak pernah jumpa lagi lah. Bukan tak boleh. Kenapa lah tak boleh? Boleh. But now the trend is towards sebab you towards ERPH lah, doctorate level later. The trend now is using systematic review dalam chapter 2 tu, rather than his criteria lah. Because the chapter 2 kalau you buat systematic review, let's say you ada 2 objektif lah. Association of simple je lah. Contohnya self-efficacy dengan hypertension. Contoh Another objective is association of health literacy dengan hypertension. Okay, the trend is sekarang ni, especially UPM buat one objective ni systematic review. Because bila buat systematic review tu, you can defend yourself, meaning that I have made an extensive search. Okay, extensive search. Kalau pakai his criteria, you nak masukkan this search into his criteria tu, dia berterabur sikit. Tak comel sangat lah, tak ada flow of story sangat. Okay. Contoh kedua, let's say association of health literacy just now dengan hypertension. So how do we say to the examiners that I have done an extensive search about these factors? Systematic review style sekarang, rather than traditional or narrative review. That is better to arrange it compared to you nak pakai HEALS. Sebab HEALS ni usually dia nak lebih ke causation. Okay, lebih ke causation. Kita dalam thesis kita taklah causation sangat. Mana? You can try lah, tapi kalau storyline dia macam tak kena, tak usahlah. Saya tak pernah jumpa lagi orang pakai. Tak adalah, student saya pun saya tak pernah suruh buat pakai HEALS criteria. Ni idea baru lah ni. Tapi I will not do it lah. Kalau I lah, I will not do it. I would go for a review, systematic review punya style. So that search too extensive. Kita boleh cakap I dah done extensive search using a lot of keywords. And then dia ada structure. Systematic review ni dia structure dia. And then kalau you pakai HEALS ni, dia macam contohlah strength of association just now dengan consistency. Dia dua perkara yang lebih kurang sama je. So macam mana nak susun benda yang sama kan? Nanti dekat sini ada, dekat sini pun ada. Tu maksud saya lah.
Thank you, Prof.
Boleh try lah kalau nak. Okay. Jane mana Jane? Bila nak dapat tajuk ni? Cepat sikit buat tajuk.
Ada in mind. Sebenarnya nak jumpa lah.
Okay, anything else? So good luck in finding your research title and your proposal lah. Itu yang main big bulk you Okay, kalau tak ada apa-apa, kita adjourn here. Is it okay? Ada yang nak pergi masak kot. Duduk rumah ni itulah kerjanya. Asyik itikaf kat dapur je. Macam tu lah. Okay. Assalamualaikum. Terima kasih
Waalaikumsalam.
Terima kasih, Prof.
Thank you, Prof.
Ambil material sekejap.
Terima kasih, Prof.
Bye.
Terima kasih, Prof.